Hi, this is Mike Brown, owner of Death Wish Coffee Company. Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast.
I love Jeff, but sweet and high. Whoop, Mr. Moskova, coffee spot.
Death Wish Coffee presents Fueled by Deathcast, the world's strongest podcast. With your hosts, the incredible Jeff and the amazing D-Man.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 14 of Fueled by Deathcast. And as always, I am the incredible Jeff.
And I am the amazing D-Man.
Yes, you are. And welcome back,
Thanks,
D-Man.
Thanks, man.
You got to go on a pretty great vacation. You went and visited your mom down in Florida.
Yeah, right in the Florida Keys, man. I got some much needed R&R. I was in Florida this morning.
Yeah.
It seems so bizarre.
Yeah.
That not but hours ago I was seeing palm trees blow in the wind.
And now you're back to the rainy upstate New York.
As soon as I got back, it was like, ugh.
That's okay, though. But it's good to have you back. It's good to be recording another new episode of our podcast. As always, thank you to Brock Powell, BrockVox.com. Go check out all the awesome stuff that amazing voice actor does, and especially for all the stuff he does for us. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that we are going to be live New York City Podfest this year, April 7th through the 9th. We are giving the live Fueled by Deathcast on April 9th. Tickets are available, nycpodfest.com.
Secret code unlocked. Discount of death.
This week, we have Joey Castillo on the podcast.
Yes, we do.
And in memorandum of that, we used his name for the discount code, which is Joey C this week. So,
and I'm going to take a crack at spelling that.
Yeah, here we go.
Joeyc.
Yeah, all one word. And this will get you 15% off of all Valhalla Java products. And this is because Joey C plays in a band called Zakk Sabbath, which, as you all could guess, that is with Zakk Wylde, who is our awesome leader in Valhalla Java. So
Odin Force Blend.
Yeah, in memorandum of that, so we're giving you an awesome discount of Valhalla Java.
So all week, use the code JoeyC to get your discount.
Science!
All right. So this week, we're going to stay away from space, but this has a little bit to do with space, and I'll get to that in a minute. This is pretty interesting. Just this week, actually, it was published in a science journal on March 1st. The world's oldest known fossils were found in Canada, and they actually are so old that they push the evidence of life back 70 million years from what we thought.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
Exactly. A international team of paleontologists discovered these in Quebec and in rocks that date back. These rocks date 4 billion years back.
Whoa.
Okay, and what they found was microscopic filaments and tubes formed by iron-loving bacteria that basically breathe and eat iron.
Weird.
Okay, and they form these tubes from kind of burrowing into the iron.
Okay.
And they are dating them at 3.77 billion years old.
Whoa.
And that pushes it back 70 million years, which when you're talking billions of years, I know that sounds like not that much, but what that really does is it pushes it back towards the creation of our solar system. So that means that life on this planet actually started a lot earlier than we thought, and it also started almost immediately after the planet was formed.
Whoa.
Only tens of millions of years after the planet was formed did these tiny bacteria start to form.
Wow, so is this the oldest known life form
Oldest
on
known-
Earth?
oldest
So these
known.
little iron termites are...
Yes, these iron bacteria. And what's fun is that these structures, these little tubes left behind by these bacteria, we find them today. If you've ever seen one of my favorite shows, Planet Earth, actually talked about these.
Tardigrades.
Tardigrades is a different thing.
Okay, sorry, I got excited. I love tardigrades.
There are hyperthermal vents under the ocean that spew out hot air, basically, you know. And what it does is it oxidizes, and it also spews out iron from the mantle, from Earth's mantle. And we find the same bacteria living in these.
So they're still around.
Yeah, they're still around. They're still that type of thing. And that's really interesting. What really makes it interesting, especially for someone like me, and this is where it gets back to space a little bit, is that the fact that these were unearthed from some of our oldest rocks, and we date them at this time period, that means that life developed on Earth the same time that there was liquid water on Earth and on Mars. Okay, so this actually starts to pose a lot more exciting questions on how extraterrestrial life could maybe form. Now, scientists have a roadblock right now because we are learning so much from the Curiosity rover on Mars right now. We found water, we found iron, we found that type of thing. So it's interesting when we find something this old on our planet, we are posed with the question of, does life on other planets start in the same way, or is Earth a complete rarity?
So are we starting to look for these bacteria in Mars now?
Correct.
Wild.
Yeah.
So do we know that they have already existed in Mars, or we're trying to figure that out now?
I'm pretty sure that we've found evidence of that kind of thing, but we haven't found evidence of like huge deposits of it, and we also haven't found, because we have found life on Mars. We have found that there is bacteria that did live on Mars millions and millions of years ago.
Yeah.
But the next step of that argument is, did it evolve? Because obviously these little bacteria that were eating iron 4 billion years ago evolved into you and I, D-Man.
Yeah, whoa. So weird. These little iron termites are like the building blocks of life on Earth.
Exactly.
And could exist on Mars, which means, life could have been... It's kind of like the seed was spread across our solar system, and it just so happened that it worked out on Earth.
And because of what we found just last week with the brand new TRAPPIST-1 solar system with the 7 Earth-like planets, maybe life is starting in the same way on those planets as well. So it's very, very mind-blowingly interesting when we find stuff like this on our own planet.
We're grains of sand on the beach, Jeff. We're nothing.
We really are.
That's so scary.
It's pretty cool.
What fuels you?
So this week, we got to talk to the most amazing drummer, musician, kick-ass motherfucker extraordinaire, Joey Castillo. And you'll hear that incredible interview later on in the episode. But it really kind of sparked my imagination for the What Fuels You segment. And something that he touched on was to own it, to own who you are.
Yeah.
And I really feel that, like, your successes in life, your failures in life, all of it adds up to who you are as a person and where you're going. How you achieve your goals has a lot to do with the confidence you have in who you are.
And the longer you deny your successes and failures and what actually makes you, the more you're denying, like, success, I believe. Because I really find that you will find success when you figure out what you are and how to make that work best for your situations.
Totally. I mean, and what I'm really getting at is a lot of times, and myself included, like, you fail at something and you just want to forget about it.
Yeah.
You just want to push that out of your mind and just keep trudging forward, and that's not a wrong way to go.
Yeah.
But those failures help. Like, you
can't beat yourself up. You got to look at it and you go, why did I fail? Is it necessarily a bad thing? How do I move forward from here? You can't deny yourself that failure. You have to learn from it. You have to move from it.
Exactly.
You have to grow from it.
You have to grow from it. You have to learn from it. I always go back to a previous episode of Fueled by Deathcast when we had EJ Snyder, and he said, you either win
or you learn.
Yeah, exactly.
I think about that all the time.
And
one thing, that, calling back on Joey C., he talked about trying out for all these, like, really huge bands, and like that can take you away. You can end up not succeeding because you get so worked up in the moment. Mm-hmm. But he talked about it in a way. He's like, I know who I am. I know what I'm good at. I know what I do. So I just go there, and that's all I'm really thinking about is what has to get done. And he's able to get it done because he knows who he is.
Right. So, it just what fuels me this week, what fuels us, what fuels all of you, what it should be is to know who you are. But make sure that you are comfortable in your own skin and confident in knowing that, moving forward and achieving your goals is all about you and who you're going to be and who you are today. So now it brings us to our brand new segment, the community shout out. We've been obviously having a lot of fun with this, shouting out all of the awesome people in the Death Wish Coffee Company community and also all of you out there who have been listening to the Fueled by Deathcast.
So this week we turned to customer service and we asked them, what customers are important to them. And it's, they go day in and day out on the phones talking to people a lot. So it's important that they have really quality people to deal with. Mm-hmm. And one of the names that was dropped this week was a man by the name of
Richard Finch.
Yeah. So Rich from Denver.
Which we've heard is that's the moniker that you, Richard, always say when you call our awesome customer service team.
So he's a newer customer, but that doesn't stop us from shouting him out because he is a huge customer and has quite the mug collection.
Yeah. I mean, I found out just today, Richard, that you started collecting mugs barely a year ago, and I saw your shrine and my jaw hit the floor. You have some choice pieces in your shrine of awesome Death Wish coffee mugs, and my hat goes off to you.
Yes, sir. So thank you very much for being an awesome customer. Thank you for being awesome to customer service, and we really appreciate all of you, but this week we appreciate you, Richard.
And speaking of mugs, if you're listening to this podcast on Thursday, March 9th, when it comes out, your wait is over. The St. Paddy's Day mugs are here, everybody. I hope you got your hands on one. And if you did order one, just know that it might be an extra day or two of shipping. We have talked on this podcast that the volume of these mugs, we just getting them from Deneen, there was a little bit of a snafu with shipping them to our shipping area. So if you might have that extra day, but they're coming and they'll be in your hands by St. Paddy's Day.
They look awesome. You will not be disappointed, and we're really happy to get these out to you. And I'm sure you'll enjoy them as much as we do.
Yeah.
The Death Wish Death List.
This week, we lost an iconic American cartoonist, Jay Lynch. He was 72. He played a big role in the underground comics movement. And now that's comics with an X. What that means is it's either comics that are made by a small press or they're self-published comics outside of the comics code. If you look at Marvel or DC, they always have that little comics code stamp on them, and that means that there is not explicit sex, drugs, and rock and roll in there.
So it's it can be consumed by children.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And so he was a big proponent of the underground comics movement. He's most known for his underground comics, the Bijou Funnies, especially for the creation of the characters Nard and Pat. He also was a heavily contributor to the Topps humor products of the day, like Wacky Packages and Garbage Pail Kids.
Wacky Packages?
Yeah.
I never had a Wacky Package.
They were fun drawings of different products, but, think of Garbage Pail Kids, but they were products instead of kids.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. He also was the main writer of Bazooka Joe comics from 1964 to 1990.
So all those comics in the gum wrappers?
In the gum wrappers. That was Jay Lynch, and he also frequently contributed to Mad Magazine. So he did a lot. He left a lot for us in his life. Death wish you a happy birthday, though, this week on Friday, March 10th.
Oh, can I say happy birthday to Chuck Norris?
You sure can.
Happy birthday, Chuck Norris.
There it is. Chuck Norris is going to be 77, and he doesn't look a day over 50. On Saturday, March 11, incredible voice actor Rob Paulson is going to be 61, the voice of Yakko Warner, among 1,000 other voices. Go look him up. Go watch I Know That Voice. He's amazing. And Wednesday, March 15th, rocker Bret Michaels is going to be 54. In fact,
what was the name of that show? It was Love of Heart? Or
yeah. Oh, man, I don't remember his reality show. But his band Poison is actually touring again for the first time in a decade, and they're actually coming right to upstate New York.
Rock of Love.
Rock of Love, that was it.
I got caught up in that for a little while.
Yeah.
It was like one of the first like reality. It was in that first stint of reality TV show storms, and I don't know what it was. It was just ridiculous.
Bret Michaels is a charismatic guy.
Yeah,
and we wish him a happy
birthday. And he never
birthday.
takes off that damn bandana.
It's true. It's true.
What's under that bandana, Bret Michaels?
We're going to take a short break and give you some cool Death Wish Coffee Company news on this week's update.
D-Man's Death Wish Update. Brought to you by Death Wish Coffee.
All right.
So this week, since I've been absent, I'm going to put this on you, Incredible Jeff. It's the Incredible Jeff update this week.
That sounds terrible, but I do have some good stuff to tell all you listeners. First of all, if you haven't seen it on the website, there is a brand new giveaway contest that's happening for a Vegas trip.
Can I win this?
No, it's illegal for you to win, D-Man. But it is pretty cool. So Death Wish Coffee is doing a collaboration sweepstakes with Poker Central from Las Vegas. And one lucky winner is going to win an all-expenses paid trip to Vegas and a year's worth of Death Wish Coffee. There's going to also be 5 runners-up who will win coffee for a month and a gift package from Poker Central. So, 6 people are going to win something pretty awesome. And all you got to do is go on over to deathwishcoffee.com, and there'll be a way to enter right on the website there. The contest has already started, and it ends at the end of April.
Is there a purchase necessary?
Nope.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you just have to. There's a couple different ways you can do it through Twitter and Facebook, and all of it's right on deathwishcoffee.com, and you can go check that out. Speaking of contests, there's another one that's been running for about a week now. In fact, I did a pretty good one, if I don't say so myself.
I'll have to see it.
It's terrible.
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, it's terrible. But it is a brand new contest. For all you have to do is submit a 10-second video explaining why you think Death Wish Coffee is the world's strongest coffee. And we're gonna pick some winners and make a commercial out of it. And
awesome.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. So and all you have to do is tape it on your phone, tape it on your home computer, camera, or whatever, and then upload it. You can upload it to Instagram, you can upload it to YouTube, you can upload it to Vimeo. There's, again, all of that information right on deathwishcoffee.com. So we have a couple cool contests for you guys to win some recognition and some pretty cool, prizes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and also, if you hadn't heard, the St. Patty's Day mug is available now. Hope you got yours.
It's there. Buy it up. Or maybe it's gone. Don't.
Maybe it's gone. But we got, obviously, some really cool mugs on the horizon and some other merchandise that's going to be coming in the next couple months. So, keep listening to the podcast. Keep reading the email, the newsletter, all the updates, all the social media. And we'll be back next week.
Welcome back to the show.
This week, we got to talk to the awesome Joey Castillo. And if you don't know who he is, he was the drummer for Queens of the Stone Age. He was the drummer for Danzig. He was the drummer for Eagles of Death Metal. He is the drummer for Zakk Sabbath and a million other bands. And it was a complete honor to have him on the show this week.
I can't believe how busy of a musician he is.
Yeah, this guy puts it to work, man.
And it goes to show you what determination can do in a business like that. And personally speaking, it was amazing to talk to him because he started out his career drumming for a band called Wasted Youth, which is an old school punk band and one of my favorites. And if you didn't know this from listening to this podcast, both D-Man and myself are huge Queens of the Stone Age fans, and just being able to talk to him about one of our favorite bands is incredible.
We really got into it too when it came to Queens of the Stone Age, which Jeff and I were melting in our chairs because if you didn't hear, we love Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, so get ready for this incredible conversation with Joey Castillo.
Enjoy.
The Fueled by Death guest.
For our listenership, how many projects are you involved with currently right now?
Well, officially, it would be Trash Talk, which I recorded the last record, and I do whenever our schedules permit on both ends, theirs and mine.
Uh-huh.
So that would be kind of one. That would be one of the main ones. Obviously, Zakk. The Zakk Sabbath thing, a band Blood Clot that I do with John Joseph from the Cro-Mags and Todd Youth and Nick Oliveri. and then let's see, Bl'ast, Trash Talk. Oh, the Obliteration's another kind of band I do, which again it's with people from other bands. So it has Steven from Black Mountain, myself, Sam Velde, who was in Bluebird, and then my buddy Austin, who was in the Saviors, and so that's kind of another thing that we do. But that's, again, it's with schedules permitted, but great band.
That's cool.
And then me and Nick do Bl'ast together. Me and Nick already do Bl'ast together when we can, which we're going to be doing a record, I guess, hopefully in the near future.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. And then, then like I say, it's like, and then I just do, thankfully there's just a lot of stuff that comes up. So whenever I can fit anything in that's, time permits and it's reasonable for me to get into, so like I said, just the Bronx is coming up in April, first week in April for about 2 weeks. And then I got another kind of a side project thing I do with Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman from Rancid. So we've been working on that for on and off again between schedules and stuff. But we got we're about a record and a half or so into it, so we're just kind of figuring out how we're going to finish. And
that's awesome.
Dude, yeah, you are everywhere, man. That is crazy.
It's great to be busy. That's
it's weird because I've always been busy my entire career, but I've always been very committed to my bands, singly, if that's the right word, or solely, I should say. So with when I was, during the Danzig days, it was pretty much strictly Danzig, a few things here and there, and then obviously Queens took up a lot of my time. Then Eagles of Death Metal, between Queens and Eagles, it was like, one finish and the next one started and vice versa, back and forth for about, 11 years. So it's like the one thing that's kind of cool about, I guess, not being so committed to one thing is I get to play with so many great people and so many different things, and it's kind of just, it's a big open playing field right now, which is cool. I just kind of, if something comes my way and I dig it and it's cool and I got time, I'm down,
That's the right attitude to have, especially in this type of business. And, speaking of your career, I'd love to go all the way back. You started off basically with the iconic band Wasted Youth. And I want to talk a little bit about like what it was like playing music back then, back in the 80s, back in that punk scene, as opposed to what you're doing now, because you're so busy doing all these projects now, but like back then, you were just cutting your teeth on stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the truth of it is, excuse me, it's like it was a really different time in the sense for myself, being that, I was learning as I was going, really. And there was, and in all fairness to myself and everybody else involved with a lot of those bands in that time, there was no real kind of roadmap or anything. You know what I mean? It was like, it was just kind of happening. And, and obviously, the punk rock thing and the hardcore thing, whatever it was. And at that, I think the motivation behind that was, young kids getting involved, kind of doing it their way, which they understood best, kind of just, really taking direction from other kids and, or, fanzines and record covers and kind of putting things together about, it looks like they may have done it this way and it sounds like they could have did it this way. And then you just do it,
Right.
And it was for me, it was a really important thing to see and be a part of that, because I remember the first time I like literally, I think I was in about 8th grade when I went to my first real gig, and that was like in 80. And it was before I was even old. I was really just kind of, I wasn't even like, I wasn't this kid who just, it was, I just shake my head and went to a gig. I went out of curiosity with a friend of mine's older sister who knew I was really into this music. But I wasn't even old enough to drive. So it was like, she's like, you want to go to this gig? We're going to go to Whiskey. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And I went, and it was X, the Gears, and the Blasters.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it was like, for me, it was completely life-changing, because it opened my eyes and my ears to something that was really still pretty foreign to a lot of people, and it was like, and that was 80s. So it's like, it still was, in some people's eyes, obviously it was already well into the whole scene kind of thing happening.
Right.
But still very, for kids my age, which were on the cusp of, we weren't old enough to be around in 77 and 76 at gigs and seeing, people like the Pistols and all that kind of shit.
Right.
But it was this kind of new branch of punk rock that was now starting, which was a little more, aggressive, and it was like hardcore. The Germs were, the thing for LA, and
oh yeah,
it was like Black Flag was starting, and so it was something that it was like, but at the same time, dude, it was like X and the Blasters were on this bill, and they were really roots Americana music, you know what I mean? It's like, and it was something else that I was going like, because I remember the first time I heard X too, and it was just like, it was completely blown away, and it was like listening to Rodney on the weekends, Rodney Bingenheimer's show, and it was like, and it was totally just like, oh my God, this is I found my thing, Now, again, like I said, I was just now starting to get into to real kind of getting someplace to see it, but had to figure out a way. And the only way that was going to ever happen was to meet other kids that were into that, because the kids that I went to school with, and and the kids that were actually my age, were not into that. They were, a lot of them were really kind of pissed off at the whole punk rock thing. And it was tough in the early days, people getting beat up by just random dudes because your hair was too short, or they didn't like the color of your sneakers and shit. You know what I mean? It was like, so, but my life at that point too was, the typical West Coast California kid. It was skateboarding, punk rock, and, just, looking into all these things and finding these things out that were all kind of going hand in hand, so like I say, it was a real different time. And the way I started playing drums, just to begin with, was a friend had a kit, and I started learning on that. And, my ear just lended it, completely at that point. I knew, I wanted to play, and it didn't matter what it was. I didn't care. I just wanted to play the drums. It was like, and it was, so we sat and banged around in garages, and then, my buddy moved, and I didn't play for a long time. But when I started playing with Wasted Youth, it was, I knew those kids and those them from being around before I was, involved, and they were South Bay kids where I was from for the most, Alan, the drummer, and one of the other kids. But, it was a band I loved, and they were my friends. So when Alan had left the band, and they kind of went back and forth between a couple other guys, I ran into Chet, I think at Motorhead at the Civic or something, and he was just like, dude, you want to play? I heard you play the drums. And I was like, yeah, okay, and that's how that started. Next thing I know, we're recording and we're going on tour, my first tour ever. And it was, again, jumped in a van, all of us. Yeah. We had no clue about where we were going or how we were going to do it, other than we took, Chet, who was the guitar player for Wasted Youth. His brother was Lucky Lair, the drummer for the Circle Jerks. And so we had a little bit of a bit of a old itinerary, something that they gave us to kind of map off,
Right. Yeah, just like a trail map to follow of punk shows.
Yeah, cool.
It
was like, I think it was my first year, like technically out of high school, because sadly I didn't finish, because I just was like, I as much as I loved school and enjoyed it, and obviously learning, and my school at that time was not a very happening place to be, and it was like, I was learning more seriously, and I was taught more just from my friends that I had met outside of that. And I was actually just, my parents were, obviously, like I said, they were a bit frustrated and not back in that whole idea of not finishing school. But it was just like they already knew, like, okay, he's got this, the bug for music, and it's like this is what, he's not breaking the law, and he's not ending up in jail, and there's no drugs and this kind of shit involved, and I'm actually getting out and doing it. So it was crazy to actually get their support and to do that, and to know that they trusted me to kind of follow through on something, because it was weird. Like I tell most people this, and I don't mean it in a way not to to go after something like a dream or something, but the way it all laid it out and kind of just happened for me, it was never about like, I want to be famous and I want to be, I want to do this and do that, and I want to be. It was like I just loved music,
right?
And I just wanted to play, and I was the youngest kid, in the band at that time, Wasted Youth, and I had the least experience, but I just knew that I just wanted to play, and whatever was happening, wherever we were playing, wherever we were going, I'll be there, And weirdly, my career's kind of been that way too, and it's always ended up okay, and I've always ended up in the right place and doing the right things with the right people,
Right.
And I'm really grateful for that, because I've never like you were just saying, wow, that's the way it should be, is that's how you should do it. And it's like, it's just it sounds corny, man, but it's just like, it's just been my life, and I've just kind of let it kind of unfold like that, and I've been really stoked for the most part. I mean, obviously there's been ups and downs. It's been very difficult at times. And we all struggle, and we all go through that.
Totally.
But, I never let those things really get in the way of me loving what I still love to do, and playing and being creative,
And that's led to, a career that you, like you just touched on, you've been able to do some incredible stuff. I mean, after, we'll fast forward like 10 years after that, you're now drumming for Danzig. And,
right.
And, you're going from being a punk band, who's like, going on the punk circuit. And now I'm sure you're doing world tours and stuff like that. So
yeah. And that's what happened, and it was weird, because for me, it was, after the Wasted Youth thing kind of died out, and we did our whatever, played, and it ran its course. I didn't really play for a little while after that, because LA was really a strange place at that time, and it was really, I mean, as far as a scene goes, there was nothing that I really wanted to be a part of, as far as like, just I'm and I wasn't like that anyways. I checked everything out, and I went to see bands from, didn't matter. I mean, I went to see, when I was still a little punker shaved head kid, it was at Disneyland watching Buddy Rich play, and it was like, and that's what, and then hopping fences at the Queen Mary in Long Beach to see Miles Davis, and it was like, it was weird, because it was just, as we all know, music is bigger than all of us. So that was my driving force, man. It's like, that's what really kept me motivated. And as far as going after, what I love to do, which was just playing. So yeah, to jump ahead, like you say, the Danzig thing, it's like, I'm playing in a band that I, that was signed. It's band Sugar Tooth, and we did a bunch of, we played around and toured and worked. But then the next thing I'm at an audition for Danzig, replacing, my hero, Chuck Biscuits, my ultimate, who I think is still to this day just the greatest ever. And, when I got that call, I thought it was a joke, first of all, when I got the call for the audition, number one. Number two, I didn't even want to do it at first. I was just like, I got a band, and I'm cool with my band. And,
right. You were in Sugar Tooth at that time, right?
Yeah. And it was like, and it wasn't because of anything other than I was just in a band. I wasn't looking to leave my band, Yeah,
you're trying to stay loyal. Yeah, I get it.
That, and and we had a record deal, and we were on a label, and they were my bros, and it was it was just like kind of like that. But then at the same time, it was kind of like a friend of mine was like, hey man, you really have to think about this, and then I was kind of like, yeah, okay, and I was the last guy to go in to audition, and they were already on callbacks, and I knew a few people going out for it, and then the next day, I get a call from Glenn and his manager, and they're like, hey man, here's the deal, you got the gig, this is what we're doing, this is gig next Tuesday, blah blah blah, and the record's coming. I was just like, whoa, I was like, okay, I need a second. They're like, no dude, you gotta make a decision right now. So I was like,
man. That must have been a little bit bittersweet having to actually go through with that, like telling your guys, hey, I got the job with Danzig, moving forward now. Was that tough?
Well, here's the situation. Yeah, dude, and honestly, I mean, eventually they understood, and I did the thing like, upon getting that call in the morning, the managers literally put it to me very bluntly, because they had, the weird thing about that whole thing was Glenn's managers at that time were actually trying to manage my other band, Sugartooth.
Oh, interesting.
And it was weird, because that's where me and Zakk have this weird connection, because Zakk was we were both on Geffen Records at that time, and we were supposed to do a tour it was supposed to be Pride and Glory, my band Sugartooth, and I think the Obsessed or something. It was some crazy tour that we were supposed to all do together back then. And then all of a sudden everything changed, and I think like Zakk said, he was like not on the label anymore, and the Obsessed guys had a beef with their label, and then that's when I got this weird call from the Danzig, and then I called my lawyer at the time, was the band lawyer, and I said, hey, I just got wind from that we're getting dropped, and I'm the only one who knows this, because these managers from Danzig just told me they're kind of dangling this in front of me, Yeah. And he was like, listen, guys aren't getting dropped, but there's definitely not going to be a second record for a minute. Okay, so with that said, you as your lawyer, I'm telling you, you need to do this, and you should try to discuss it with the guys about staying around, and maybe blah blah blah. So
crazy.
So it made the decision a little bit easier.
It made it easier, but it made it very difficult, because I now had this in my back pocket, and I wanted to tell the guys, like, hey man, there's word going around that we're not going to be doing a second record, but
right.
it wasn't for sure and stuff. So when I sat down with them, I was just very honest. I said this would, and they were bummed. They were it was. They felt a little bit, I'm sure they were mad. They were pissed. They were hurt. They were hurt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, it was like this Danzig tour started 1 week later, and I was now, I went from playing, the small club scene, and my band tearing balls and kicking ass and touring with a lot of great bands, but I went from that to headlining Irvine Meadows the following week,
Right. Holy man.
and having a tech and on a bus,
yeah,
and flying to gigs and doing this. So,
next level shit.
Like, next level shit. And then for me, again, there was this added bonus to the whole thing, which was Glenn and Chuck and Erie were all from the punk rock scene, from the Misfits on down to, Chuck being DOA and everything else.
Oh yeah.
Jerks and Fly. So there was this connection there that I really was like proud of and stoked to be a part of, knowing that, these were people that I looked up to and admired their ways of growing as players, that I was now a part of. So that was huge, that was rad for me, and super.
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on this a little bit, and I feel like we got to talk a little bit about Zakk Wylde, because he is so near and dear to the hearts of all of us over here at Death Wish Coffee.
100%.
So you met him back in those days, but now you're playing with him with Zakk Sabbath.
Yeah.
Did you guys, when you kind of met, and did you basically become acquaintances, and did you think you were ever going to be playing with him, or how did you guys kind of start playing together, kind of thing?
Well, I think the mutual connection between Zakk and I would be Blasco. And as we all know, Blasco's awesome.
Also very near and dear to our hearts. Yes.
Yeah, and he's just, he's got that thing which I've known about Blasco, because Blasco played a short time in Danzig with me as well, but Blasco has that thing where, I mean, he really, like, sadly, I hate to say it, speaking for myself, if a band calls me that literally has no chance in hell of ever doing anything other than just probably playing to themselves and here and there, and I love them, I'm stoked. I'm like, yeah, I'll jam with you guys. Hell yeah, I'm into it.
That's awesome.
Blasco has that thing of going like, this is going to do something, and I really know you would be good for this, or this person and this person, are I know can make something happen and make it viable, and people want it, and and enjoy it, and that so when they call me to do the Zakk Sabbath thing, I think I was out with Scott at the time. I was out with Scott Weiland still, and when he called me, I was kind of like, really? I was like, I don't get it. I mean, I get it because it sounds amazing, but you're going to do this a Sabbath tribute thing? It's like, yeah, but and I was confused. Like, is it going to be like the Ozzy versions of Sabbath because of Zakk, or is it you with Zakk? And he's like, no, dude, it's going to be traditional, straight down the fucking middle of what Sabbath is, and a bit of how we would play it. You play aggressive, Zakk plays aggressive, but yet very capable of keeping it in the lines and in respect of what it should be without taking it, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, man, I'm into this, and it was weird because when he called me, I think it was still early on. It was still months away from when it was actually going to happen, because I think it actually went down in 2013 or 14 of October.
All right.
For when we were going to get together, Oh wait, maybe I'm wrong. It might have been 14, I think. So, anyways, when I forgot about it, I never thought that Blasco was going to follow up with any of this, and he just called me and said, Joey, are you into this? Would you be down? I was like, 100%, I'm down. But then it was, didn't really hear nothing. I was doing my thing, and Zack's out doing Black Label and the Hendrix thing, and that's so obviously we keep in, we follow each other, and so I would see I was like, oh, okay, cool. And the next thing I know, Zack's like, Bl'ast was like, hey, dude, we got some dates booked, and it's going to be around October, and then we're going to follow up with NAMM and this, and I was like, okay, cool.
So wait, so they booked dates you hadn't even played together yet, and dates are booked, and the band's going? Wow, holy shit, dude.
We never, and that's what I was going to say. The next thing was, I did not know at all what to expect. At all. You know what I mean? It's like, they sent me the songs we were going to do, and I'm going like, okay, I'm listening to everything going like, all right, so we're going to do these, but I'm
what are they going to sound like?
We've never played together,
right? Yeah.
So, and there was no real, like, let's just get in the room and jam and just see what happens. It was like, no, dude, shows are booked. Okay, cool. So the first place we met was at Mates rehearsals, man, and we're doing full blown, rehearsals for a gig. And, I had seen Zakk here and there. I think, I bumped into him. I think the last time I actually saw him, though, I was still in Queens. It was one of the last tours that I did with Queens, and we were at Mates together. And, and Zakk was telling me, we were getting reacquainted with a bunch of shit, and it'd been a while. And, he was telling me that he was sober now and doing all, we were just kind of talking, and, I think it was me, him, and Josh outside just kind of catching up. And because the time before that, I think the last time I saw him was when we did the Rock Honors, and the Queens did a tribute to Sabbath. Yep. And there was this weird beef with Josh and Sharon at the time, and it was just like this really weird thing. It was it was bizarre, So, but anyways, so yeah, man. So we get in the room over at Mates, and we just start playing the first fucking song, which I think was Into the Void, man, and it was just like at the end, we stopped at the end. It was like, holy shit, man! It was like, that was fucking awesome.
Nice.
That was, just, obviously, dynamically, it was a perfect fit for this. The three of us played, and it was, of course, awesome, and because you're fucking playing Sabbath,
Yeah.
but I'm getting and in my brain I'm playing it with Zakk,
Right.
Blasco,
Right.
and it's just we're fucking rocking Sabbath. So, anyways, it just happened, and it was easy, and everybody's our personalities were completely compatible, and there was no weirdness at all. It was immediately just how Zakk is too, man.
Yeah.
It's like when you know him and you're his bro, and you're on that on that side of him where it's like he's one of the best humans around, man.
Yeah.
And he's just fun, and he's hilarious, and it's like it's just Zakk. It's like so I mean, and then we all know how he is as a player.
Yeah, powerful.
He's a maniac.
Yeah,
he's a fucking maniac.
You're all fucking maniacs.
Yeah.
That's why it's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like those kind of, those bands and those things and those people that bring that out of me. That's when I know that I'm doing something that I love and what's right. Because I feel that thing as well. And we went out and did those first 3 shows, which were here in LA.
Yeah.
And they were just blown out completely, and people were just freaking the fuck out. And then we were just kind of like, oh, okay. And then we did NAMM, and that kind of sealed it. And then afterwards, Zack's like, Zakk and Blasco called me, and they're like, hey, man, we're getting some offers for some tours, which, crazy enough, none of us really can believe, but
right.
Are you into this? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm into it, man. It's like I love it, and it's a great time, and I want to keep doing it, and I'm stoked to just be a part of it, So shortly after that, I think we did a couple more shows, 1 or 2 here and there, and then we ended up doing on the Clutch run,
Yeah,
totally. Which again was uncharted territory for us about actually going on the road and doing this. So we were kind of, again, when Clutch, and especially because Clutch are my bros, and I've known for really a long time, and they're fucking amazing.
They're
and
so great.
We're
pretty huge fans.
Yeah, I mean, so dude, it's like it's a really amazing thing to be a part of when they welcome you into their world as well. So we were kind of like, okay, and I was kind of the same thing, like, all right, this is kind of weird, but it's pretty badass, and I can see it, being fun and a great time, but what's the audience going to think of us doing Sabbath covers,
Right.
It's like, but then again, you got the guys from Clutch who know exactly what it's about, and they're like, no, man, we want you guys here because it's not just, you guys aren't just a cover band. Technically, yes, we are,
right,
but there's a thing that happens when we do it, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but if you can kind of own it a bit and make it a bit of kind of, Zakk kind of make it his thing and me make my, within still keeping it within the, the lines of where it should be, and never disrespecting it. Hopefully, it's like that's pretty amazing, and I from what I gather from people and friends and other players, that's kind of what we do, So. So that's been the amazing thing about it,
That's really great. I want to go back a little bit again because we were talking a little bit on it. And you've done stuff like what you're doing now with Zakk, and talking about filling in for Biscuits, and doing Danzig for so many years like you did. But you also, as known to so many people in the world, were a humongous part of Queens of the Stone Age. And both D-Man and myself are incredible fans of your work with that band and that band as well. Is there a difference in something like that? Whereas, and what I mean by that is like you're playing with bands like Danzig that are in a sense already established, that have already been out there. But you're the drummer on Queens of the Stone Age with one of my personal favorite albums, Lullabies to Paralyze, and that's kind of when that band broke. Is there a difference as a career musician like you are for something like that, or is it all just kind of just riding that wave kind of thing?
Well, the thing about with the Queens thing, which was again there was a a bit of history
A little bit, yes.
Prior to me joining, which was, when I was in Sugartooth, Josh and was still doing Caius, and we played around a few times, and we were friends with Mario Lally, who was a big part of writing with Josh and Queens, and from Fatso Jetson and stuff like that. Yeah. So, we went out and did a few of them generator parties out there with those guys. So there was this, we knew who each other were, and we were always cool with each other when we saw each other. So we knew there was that thing that happened, and then I was always a fan. You know what I mean? It's like I enjoyed, I really, really just to this day, one of my favorite records is still the first Queens record. It's just
hell yeah.
It's just, to me, it's. And I know a lot of people differ, probably Josh himself, but I think it was the timing of that record, and I think the space he was in as a writer was still yet to be surpassed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Even me being a part of it for so long with Lullabies and with Era, and then the half of the last record. It's like, and then the touring, coming in right after Grohl, and then touring all of Def, and and it was especially at that time, with Def coming in like that, because I had the thing was people don't know is me and Josh kind of got reacquainted with each other as players was when I went to Europe I went to the UK with Goatsnake opening for Queen, and that was on R, and it was their last run that they were going to be doing before they started Def, and it was and so we kind of got, like I said, it was we were all friends, and we were kind of always kind of knew what one another might have been doing, but not really, you know what I mean? So that was kind of the door got opened again, like, and apparently that's when they kind of were tossing around with giving me a call, and then I guess, they ended up going in with Grohl to do the record because they had some issues with other people and things. So they, and that thing, the way it came about was so typical fashion of how things happened for me, man. It was just like, okay, dude, Joey, here's a situation. Grohl's not doing the record. I mean, the tour. Tour starts this date, blah, blah, blah. Can you do it? And I was like, okay, well, get me the stuff and I'll start working on it, and we'll play. Within a day of that happening, Josh calls me and he's like, bro, it's just not going to happen. I've had a death in the family, and I've got to go back to handle some biz with my folks. And I'm like, dude, handle your biz. Don't worry about it. I get it. No problem. That goes, a day goes by after that, and he's like, we got to try this, because if we don't try this, it's gonna bother me forever that we just at least didn't even give it a shot. Can you come down on Sunday to at least play? And I was like, dude, I've had no time to learn the new stuff, which was, no one knows. It's like the new record, the CD that they sent me at that time too. It didn't even have titles, so I was learning songs by numbers, and there was confusion on that because the record had so many, commercials in between. So the songs all went into one big song, basically. Right. So he's like, doesn't matter, dude, let's just do it. I'm like, okay. So I had no expectations whatsoever than just going in and maybe rocking a few Queen songs that I loved,
Yeah.
them, And mind you, dude, I knew what they had already been going through because they had been auditioning a bunch of players, and they, I knew the guy who apparently had the gig, and he was telling people he had the gig, and that's another reason why I was kind of like, I don't think that this is probably going to happen.
That makes it a little bit awkward, huh?
Yeah, so it was, it was like that, and again, I had no expectation. I went down, we went to a rehearsal room on a Sunday, and it was just, me and Nick, and the only person that did know about it other than, obviously Lanigan knew about it, because I think Lanigan was the one that actually called me at one point and said, would you be willing to check it out after all? And I was like, of course. So when I get down there, it's me, Josh, and Nick setting up, and they had still been even rehearsing up until the night before with the guy because they were leaving on Monday to start this run,
Oh, man.
And so I kind of felt weird too because I was like, man, am I just being that? I don't want it to be weird. I don't want these guys to feel weird. Like I'm.
You don't want to take a dude's job, especially if
take a
you
dude's
like him.
job and then know how hard that these dudes have been working trying to find a guy, and they were going back and forth between two other dudes, and it was just like it was a lot, And the only reason I know this was because, like I say, I heard about it from a few people, and then Josh kind of telling me what was happening. So we went in, and I think we started playing. The first song I think we did may have been like fucking No One Knows or something, and we got through that, and it was it was we got through it, and they were like, cool, that was rad, let's do something else. And I think we did Avon, and
Cool.
And that's and they asked me, what do you want to do? And I just said, hey dude, let's just go for something that I know, and let's do Avon. And we started it and we clicked it off, and it was the thing that happened in the room at that moment. And I know it sounds fucking corny and shit, but it happened. We all knew it happened.
That's awesome.
It was like, and Josh literally, I think, stopped me before the song was done, and he said, okay, cool, man, I need 5 minutes. And I was like, and I didn't know that I got the gig. I thought maybe, okay, cool, we know now, and they don't need to do anything else and this and that. So I'm kind of packing up my shit, and then Josh comes back in, and he was like, okay, bro, we leave tomorrow, man.
Shit.
We got to do this. And I'm
Wow.
like, dude, wait a minute. It's like noon on a Sunday. And I'm like, he goes, we got to do this. I just fired the drummer, and I'm like, dude, no, man. It's like, it was like, talk about pressure, and I'm like, fucking tomorrow. And he's like, okay, and meet him outside now, and he goes, let's talk some quick business, and let's, same thing, dude. Those kind of guys, when they know, they just
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. He goes, so at the same time, we the four of us get back in the room because Troy's now there, and he's like, let's regroup in a couple hours. You go handle what you need to handle. I need to go do what I need to do and do something. So, again, here I was in this thing. So I had to get on the phone and call Glenn, which didn't go over well. And,
I can't imagine that phone call.
Yeah, it was a bummer, dude, because, and mind you, me and him we're gold now. And he's my bro, and I love him, and I get it. And he was, I spent, a good 6 or 7 years with him, and I stuck around from, Erie and John no longer in the band to all the different versions of it, and I loved him, man, because Glenn always, he's my bro, and I still to this day, he always treated me fairly, and he treated me great, and, despite all the horror stories, I never had those kind of run-ins with him ever.
That's
I
great.
just didn't, and so I called him, and I tried to make it as smooth as I possibly could, and he just, he was pissed,
Yeah.
and I understood that, and I said, well, when we hung up, I was like, I hope it's, I hope we can get past this at some point, but I understand that, and it was like whatever. So we hung up, and then I was in there a couple hours later, man, trying to learn the Queen set for the first in-store we were doing, which we were playing, which was up in San Francisco at the Virgin Megastore, and then we were coming back to do, I think it was Amoeba, or it was San Diego, then Amoeba. So, and now it was, the pressure was on me now. Now you're replacing Grohl.
Yeah, not only do you have to step in David Grohl's shoes, you have to do it tomorrow, and you got a couple hours to pack up. That's wild,
exactly.
Man.
Exactly.
And you have to quit Glenn Danzig's band at the same time. So, hold on, let me put myself in your shoes for a little bit. You got a whirlwind going on. You have to quit Glenn Danzig's band. You got to fill in for Dave Grohl. You got to fill in for Dave Grohl for tomorrow with Queens of the Stone Age, who you totally, at this point, you already know that they're awesome, and you get to be part of this awesome thing. So, what fuels you to do what you're doing? What is it that really makes you tick to do all this awesomeness?
I think, again, and it's funny, I have to say, bro, you nailed it. I've never even thought about it that way until you just put that into words about what I had to do at that given moment. And my whole thing, I think, really is I've never really looked at myself that, maybe handled things well under pressure. I just handled things as they came my way. Okay. So now with that, and I'm not going to say that I don't believe me. I'm not fucking going off in my own head about things, but
right.
The one thing I will say about coming into the band after Grohl, and this is what me and Josh had spoke about, and he said, Joey, he's like, I remember him saying to me, I believe, other than the fact of your capabilities, that is the reason why you've been here for, I was there for so long. But was that when I was asked that question over and over again, I said to people, and it was in all honesty, I'm not only coming in just after Grohl. No disrespect. I love Grohl, and he's a great drummer. We all know that. But I have three other drummers in front of him that were in that band,
right,
that I have to come in and who did great work as well.
Totally.
That I need to come in and do what I do, yet still be me, but respect those things.
Yeah.
It was the same thing when I had to, I joined Danzig coming after Biscuits. It was like, he's my be all end all, and people who know me know that. And that was part of the reason why I didn't want to do it, because I was like, I don't ever want him to not approve of what I do, or I don't want him to think that I'm, not doing a great job, whatever. I just didn't want to know those things.
Right.
But at the same time, it was like, okay, I just have to step up. I have to do what I do. I have to try to own what I do, but yet still retain who I am. And still, at the end of the day, besides try to do a great job, is have fun doing it. Because I've been in a couple situations now where I've had to do a gig or something that I didn't particularly like, or it didn't maybe fit or didn't feel, but I had to do it. And it's, and I don't mean in any kind of way to disrespect anybody that makes a living, because we all have to do it, I guess.
Right.
Up until that point, I never had to, and it was something something I had to really kind of, I understood how you can see where some people just are playing something because they're just there playing something.
That becomes pretty soul sucking, though.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and that's the thing where it goes back to, where people were like, "What are you gonna do now after Queens?" I was like, "Well, in my brain, I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to do? I played before I was in Queens. I'm going to continue to play.
Yeah.
And people who knew me knew that too. But obviously it was like, it was a big departure for me. And people, it is what it is. Queens is a giant fucking band. It's a big machine now,
Yeah.
And, but thankfully I was a part of it when it was still on the come up, and I was a part of it. And I thank you when you say a big part of it. And it's something that I'm always forever grateful for and stoked to have been a part of, but when I think the only way to tackle anything, whether it's something like that, or whether it's just, somebody calling you like, we need you to do this. It's like, I have to put all things aside, my ego, everything else, and just focus on what I've been asked to do. And I find, seriously, because I can easily talk myself out of going the other route, which is picking myself apart, picking the situation apart, blah, blah. But the moment I just let it all go, like that kind of shit, man, and just, because believe me, man, it was, when I was going in with Zakk as well, it was hard for me to be a bit open with my own self, because I'm going like, oh, dude, Zakk's played with everybody. He's a guitar god.
Yeah, you can't think about it too much. You can't psych yourself out. You just gotta do what needs to be done.
Exactly. And the thing that I find is I'm going like, oh yeah, well, he asked me to be here. He knows who I am.
Yeah.
He knows what I do. Right. So again, like with Queens and everything else, and even coming in, like you said, we're discussing after the Grohl thing, and then going down the lines. It's like, it was. I just had to remind myself, man, that I'm there for a reason. I love what I do. I still believe that I do what I do well, and not to get stuck on that kind of shit, because it's all that stuff is as we know, it can be fake news. You know what I mean? It's like, I hate to even say that, but it's just people talking shit who want to dig into something and get something from something that really is bigger than all of us. It's music, man. It's and if you love it and if you're the guy to do it, you're there for a reason. And you know, there's obviously there's a lot of things I know I am incapable of doing that I would never dream of getting myself into. But I just have to remember that who I am and why I'm there, and that I've more than likely been asked to do this because I am capable, you know?
That's awesome. You have a great outlook on what you do and life as well. And, you know, honestly, I just want you to be able to tell all of our listeners what you can plug coming up for you. I know we talked about at the top of this interview, you know, all the different stuff that you're kind of got your hands in, but like, is there anything in the near future that's coming out, or that you're going to be, you know, shows that you're going to be playing that you want to plug?
Let's see. Yeah. Well, and like I say, as far as a new project, which the new Trash Talk record, which is called Tangle, which is free on iTunes and Spotify and everything else.
Awesome.
EP, that just came out a few months back. But I got a new record coming out with Blood Clot, which is Nick Oliveri, myself, John Joseph, and Todd Youth, which I think is coming out on Metal Blade, and that is in July.
Killer.
And we're going to be doing, you know, and it's hardcore, you know, but it's with 3 great musicians and players who are all, you know, from big backgrounds of big band, the Cro-Mags, and you know, Warzone. Me and Todd played in Danzig together. You know, obviously me and Nick played in Queens together, and this and that. So it's just it's really great players and a fun band, you know. So that's coming out in July, and then, like I say, I'm going out 2 weeks with the Bronx in America and Canada, I think, and that's in April. So, you know, I got stuff coming up, and obviously I'll see everybody else, you know, for, you know, May and June when I'm out with Zakk, doing the States and, you know, doing some big festivals. So looking forward to that, which I know we start on the East Coast. I heard, which is 2 shows in New York, which is awesome. I think they're both sold out already. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So, you know, again, I'm looking forward to all that, and anybody who doesn't know, my Instagram is the Joey C, and I usually keep a pretty good update of what I'm doing or up to on there. So
awesome.
You know,
well, yeah, man, I feel like I could sit here and talk to you about awesome rock star stuff for hours.
Yeah, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, man, really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys having me, and obviously of all the amazing jet fuel coffee that I'm able to do things like this that you guys provide.
Yeah. Well, if you come by this way with Zakk, I don't know exactly where the tour hits, but if you come by this way again, make sure to stop by HQ, and we'll really load you up, and maybe we could sit down face to face and have another talk. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love that, brother, for sure.
Cool, man.
Sure.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.